19 years of loyalty, dedication, and hard work vanished in a blink. The moment the new director stepped into the office, everything changed. Without warning, I was called into his office and told I was being fired on my very first day under his leadership. Shock, disbelief, and anger swirled inside me, but I knew this wasn't the end of my story. Little did anyone expect what I did next, right at his welcome speech, a moment that would leave everyone stunned and change everything forever. After the shock of being fired on my very first day by the new director, I was left reeling, struggling to process the sheer unfairness of it all. 19 years of dedication and hard work, erased in a matter of minutes like I was nothing more than a disposable employee. The irony was painful. I had built my career, earned respect, and poured my soul into that company. But the new director seemed determined to erase everything I stood for, and with no warning, no explanation. My coworkers whispered behind closed doors, some offering sympathy, others pretending nothing had changed. But deep down, I knew this was just the beginning of a battle far bigger than I could imagine. The new director had arrived with promises of change, innovation, and a fresh start. But no one expected it to come at the expense of loyal employees who had been the backbone of the company for years. I had witnessed several directors come and go, but this one was different. He wasn't interested in understanding the company's history or the people who had made it successful. His vision was ruthless: cut costs, bring in new blood, and make a splash, no matter the damage done. I could feel the tension in the office growing with every passing day, as others nervously awaited their own fate. In those first few days after being fired, I found myself wandering the streets near the office, grappling with the overwhelming feeling of betrayal. It wasn't just a job loss, it was a personal attack. How could someone so new to the company dismiss nearly 2 decades of loyalty as if it was worthless? I thought about all the late nights, the missed family events, the sacrifices made to help the company thrive. And yet, here I was, pushed out like yesterday's news. But I refused to let bitterness consume me. I knew I had a choice: to crumble under the weight of this injustice, or to rise above it and show everyone, especially that new. I wasn't going to sit silently and watch as he tore apart the foundation we had built. I began quietly reaching out to former colleagues, allies who still believed in the company's core values and the people behind its success. Together, we started sharing stories of what made the company great, reminding each other of the legacy we carried. As the day of the new director's official welcome speech approached, a plan began to form in my mind. It wasn't just about getting revenge or proving a point, it was about reclaiming respect and standing up for every employee who had been overlooked or undervalued. The speech was to be held in the company auditorium, attended by executives, staff, and even some clients. It was his moment to shine, to showcase his vision and leadership. But I knew that moment had to mean more than empty promises and polished words. I decided to attend the speech. Not as a defeated former employee, but as a voice of experience and truth. With the support of a few trusted friends still inside the company, I managed to get an invitation. I wanted to confront the new director, not with anger or hostility, but with undeniable proof of what he was trying to erase. I rehearsed in my mind how I would address the crowd, how I would remind everyone of the sacrifices made and the people behind the success. This was my chance to turn the tables, to make sure no one forgot the true cost of his fresh start. On the morning of the speech, nerves bubbled beneath my calm exterior. I dressed carefully, choosing clothes that projected confidence and professionalism. Walking into the auditorium, I felt the weight of all those years behind me, the memories and battles that had shaped my career. The room was packed, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. The new director stood at the podium, smiling, ready to deliver his carefully crafted message about growth and change. When my moment came, I stepped forward from the back row and took the microphone. The room fell silent, eyes turning toward me, puzzled but curious. I began by thanking everyone for the opportunity to speak, then launched into a heartfelt speech that no one expected. I spoke of dedication, of loyalty, of the countless employees who had poured their hearts into the company over the years. I spoke of the pain of being dismissed without warning, but also of the strength to rise above and demand respect. My words echoed through the auditorium, cutting through the polished veneer of the new director's speech. I revealed stories of challenges we had overcome, projects that had succeeded because of teamwork and commitment, and the human side of a company often forgotten in boardrooms. I called for fairness, for recognition, and for leadership that valued its people, not just profits. The audience was captivated, some nodding in agreement, others whispering among themselves. The new director's smile faltered as he realized his welcome speech was no longer about him, it was about the legacy he was trying to rewrite. What happened next changed everything. The room erupted in a mix of applause, murmurs, and shocked expressions. Employees stood up, inspired by the courage to speak out. Colleagues who had been silent found their voices. The new director was faced with a reality he hadn't prepared for, a workforce united not by fear, but by shared history and respect. I saw the confusion in his eyes, the cracks in his confident facade. That day, my actions planted a seed of resistance, a call for change that respected the past while demanding a better future. Though the new director had fired me, I had found my voice in that auditorium. I wasn't just a victim of change, I was a catalyst for something greater. The story didn't end with my dismissal, it was only just beginning. And as I left the room, head held high, I knew that I had turned my darkest moment into a powerful statement of resilience and hope. The atmosphere in the company shifted dramatically after my speech at the new director's welcome event. What began as a moment of defiance turned into a turning point that no one had anticipated, least of all the director himself. His carefully crafted image of control and authority began to unravel as whispers spread throughout the office, fueled by my words and the undeniable truth they carried. I watched as his confidence wavered behind his forced smiles, the once imposing figure now scrambling to maintain a grip on the company he'd only just taken over. In the days that followed, tensions escalated in ways I hadn't imagined. Employees who had been silenced out of fear now found themselves emboldened, speaking up at meetings, sharing concerns, and questioning decisions. My speech had awakened something powerful, a collective voice demanding respect and fairness. It wasn't just about me anymore, it was about all of us who had built the company from the ground up. But with this newfound strength came resistance, and the new director was determined to crush it before it could grow. The director's tactics grew increasingly ruthless. He started targeting those who had shown any support for my speech, subtle but unmistakable signs of retaliation. Some were given impossible deadlines, others passed over for promotions, and a few faced outright dismissal. The office became a battlefield where loyalty was tested, and fear lurked in every corner. Despite this, the employees stood firm, refusing to back down. The fragile unity I had helped ignite held strong, even as the director tried to isolate and intimidate us. Amid this chaos, I was contacted by several former colleagues who wanted to join forces and challenge the director's leadership in a more formal way. We began gathering evidence of unfair practices, documenting his reckless decisions and the damage they were causing. What had started as a personal fight had evolved into a movement, one that aimed not only to protect our jobs but to restore the company's values and integrity. The stakes were higher than ever, and failure was not an option. Meanwhile, the director intensified his efforts to discredit me personally. Rumors spread that I was trying to sabotage the company out of spite, that I was bitter and unwilling to adapt. I knew these lies were designed to weaken my influence and isolate me from the very people I was fighting for. But I refused to be silent. I continued to speak openly, sharing facts, confronting falsehoods, and reminding everyone of the bigger picture. My resilience became a beacon for others, a reminder that standing up to injustice was never easy but always necessary. The pressure mounted to a breaking point when the director called a company-wide meeting to address the unrest and reassert his authority. It was meant to be a show of power, a warning that dissent would not be tolerated. The tension in the room was palpable as employees filled the seats, some anxious, others determined. The director took the stage, his voice sharp and commanding, promising swift action against those who threatened the company's future. But instead of cowing the crowd, his speech backfired. As he spoke, I stood quietly at the back, observing the reactions. Faces once full of doubt now held a fierce determination. When he finished, a brave employee stood up and asked a pointed question about the director's recent decisions, a question that echoed the concerns many had been too afraid to voice. That moment broke the dam. One by one, employees rose to share their experiences, grievances, and hopes for change. The director's attempt at control crumbled under the weight of truth and unity. What followed was a storm of confrontation, negotiation, and soul-searching. The board of directors, sensing the unrest, stepped in to mediate. They called for investigations and demanded transparency, recognizing that the company's future depended on more than just profit margins. The director found himself isolated, his authority questioned not only by employees but by those who had hired him. It was clear that the company was at a crossroads, and the path forward would require more than just top-down mandates. In the midst of this turmoil, I found myself facing a personal crossroads as well. The fight had consumed me, draining my energy and testing my resolve. But the support from my colleagues, the knowledge that we were fighting for something bigger than ourselves, kept me going. I realized that this struggle was about reclaiming dignity, mine, theirs, and the company's. It was about proving that loyalty and hard work could never be dismissed without consequence. The climax of this battle came when the board scheduled a decisive meeting to determine the director's fate. I was invited to present our case, to lay out the evidence of his mismanagement and the impact on the company culture. Standing before the board, I spoke with conviction, detailing the stories of employees affected, the projects derailed, and the morale shattered. It was a moment of truth, not just for the director, but for the entire company. As I finished, the room fell into a heavy silence. The board members exchanged looks, weighing the gravity of the situation. After what felt like an eternity, they announced their decision: the director would be removed from his position, and a search for new leadership that valued the company's heritage and people would begin. The announcement sent waves of relief and hope through everyone present. It was a victory hard-won, a testament to the power of standing up against injustice. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of closure and renewal. 19 years of dedication had not been in vain. Though the director had tried to erase my contributions, my voice and the voices of my colleagues had prevailed. The company was on a path to healing, and I had played a crucial role in that transformation. The climax wasn't just the end of a tyrant's reign, it was the beginning of a new chapter where respect, loyalty, and fairness would guide the way forward. After the board's decision to remove the director, the atmosphere in the company began to shift gradually but noticeably. It was as if a heavy cloud had finally lifted, allowing fresh air to circulate through the halls that had been stifled for months. Relief washed over many employees, and hope began to take root in their hearts once again. Yet, the path to recovery was far from simple. The scars left by the director's short but harsh tenure were deep, and healing required more than just changing the leadership. It demanded rebuilding trust, culture, and morale from the ground up. In the immediate aftermath, the company appointed an interim leader, someone respected by employees and known for fairness and transparency. This choice was a breath of fresh air. The new interim director held open forums, encouraged honest conversations, and invited employees to share their thoughts without fear of reprisal. It was the first time in a long while that voices were genuinely heard, and this simple act began to restore a sense of belonging and purpose. The energy in the office slowly transformed from tense and wary to cautiously optimistic. Many who had felt sidelined or silenced began to re-engage with their work, fueled by the hope that their contributions would now be valued. Projects that had stalled under the previous director's erratic management started moving forward again. Teams reformed around shared goals and renewed trust, and a spirit of collaboration blossomed. People who had once considered leaving started reconsidering, choosing instead to invest their talents in rebuilding the company they loved. The sense of unity that had been shattered was now being carefully mended, piece by piece. Despite these positive changes, the transition was not without challenges. The wounds inflicted by months of fear and uncertainty did not heal overnight. Some employees carried resentment and distrust, hesitant to fully embrace the new leadership. Others struggled to forgive the director's harsh treatment or to forget the turmoil that had threatened their careers. There were moments when old habits resurfaced, whispers behind closed doors, doubts about whether the company could truly change. The leadership knew that rebuilding culture required patience, consistency, and ongoing effort. To address these challenges, the interim director launched a series of initiatives aimed at strengthening the company's foundation. Workshops on communication and teamwork were introduced, along with mentorship programs to support employee growth and development. A renewed focus on transparency meant that decisions were explained openly, and employees were invited to contribute ideas and feedback. Celebrations of successes, both big and small, became regular occurrences, helping to rebuild pride and morale. Slowly but surely, these efforts began to reshape the company's identity. I found myself deeply involved in this rebuilding phase, not just as a participant but as a leader within the employee community. My experience, once dismissed and undervalued, was now sought after as a source of guidance and wisdom. I worked closely with the interim leadership to ensure that the voices of longtime employees were included in shaping the future. It was rewarding to see colleagues who had once felt powerless now empowered to influence change. Together, we created committees and feedback channels that allowed for continuous dialogue and improvement. Throughout this period, the story of my dismissal and the director's downfall became a symbol within the company, a reminder of the dangers of disrespecting loyalty and the power of standing up for what is right. It was shared not to dwell on the past but to teach lessons about courage, resilience, and the importance of valuing people over profits. New employees who joined the company were told this story as part of their orientation, helping to instill a culture of respect and integrity from day one. However, the transition also involved some difficult decisions. The director's removal meant that certain projects and strategies he had pushed were abandoned or reevaluated, which caused some disruption. Resources had to be redirected, and some initiatives were delayed as the new leadership prioritized stability and long-term growth. This created frustration among some stakeholders, who were eager for quick results. Balancing the need for immediate progress with the careful rebuilding of trust required diplomacy and clear communication. Externally, the company's reputation had taken a hit during the director's reign, and restoring confidence with clients and partners became a priority. The interim director, along with myself and other senior employees, reached out proactively to key stakeholders, acknowledging past issues and outlining the steps being taken to improve the company's culture and performance. This transparency was met with cautious approval, and over time, relationships began to mend. The company started winning back contracts and projects that had been lost, signaling a gradual return to stability and growth. One of the most powerful moments during the falling action phase came when the company held its first annual town hall meeting since the director's departure. Unlike previous meetings that had felt staged and intimidating, this event was honest and open. Employees shared stories of their experiences, challenges, and hopes for the future. Leadership responded with humility and commitment to ongoing change. There was laughter, tears, and a collective sense of healing. It was clear that while the battle had been hard, it had also united everyone in a profound way. Personally, I experienced a mix of emotions during this time. The fight to reclaim my dignity and respect had been exhausting, but it also reaffirmed my belief in the power of standing up for oneself and others. I felt gratitude for the support from colleagues and pride in the role I played in changing the company's course. Yet, I also recognized that this was not the end of the journey. Maintaining the progress made required vigilance and continued engagement. I made a personal commitment to stay involved, mentoring younger employees and advocating for a culture where everyone could thrive. As the months passed, the company began to regain its footing. Productivity increased, employee satisfaction rose, and new leaders emerged from within the ranks, individuals who understood the importance of respect and collaboration. The dark chapter marked by the director's short tenure became a catalyst for positive transformation. The lessons learned during that difficult time shaped policies, leadership training, and company values that would guide the organization for years to come. Looking back, the falling action phase was about more than just recovery, it was about renewal. It was a time when the company confronted its weaknesses, acknowledged its mistakes, and committed to doing better. The experience forged a stronger, more resilient organization, one that honored the contributions of every employee and recognized that true leadership is earned through respect and integrity, not fear and control. What started as a painful dismissal became a story of hope and empowerment for everyone involved. In the end, what began as a painful and shocking dismissal turned into a profound lesson, not just for me, but for the entire company. Losing my job on day one after 19 years was a bitter experience, one that no one should have to endure. But it also became a turning point that exposed the flaws of leadership and sparked a necessary change. What I did at the director's welcome speech wasn't just an act of defiance, it was a catalyst that helped reveal the truth and ultimately led to a better future for everyone. This experience taught me that no matter how long you have been loyal or how much you have sacrificed, respect and dignity must never be taken for granted. It showed me that standing up for yourself, especially in the face of injustice, is not only important but can inspire others to do the same. The support I received from colleagues, the solidarity that grew within the company, and the eventual removal of a toxic leader demonstrated the power of collective courage and resilience. More than anything, it reinforced my belief in the importance of leadership rooted in empathy, transparency, and fairness. A leader's role is not to intimidate or belittle but to uplift and guide. When those values are absent, the damage is deep and lasting. But when they are embraced, even the darkest situations can lead to renewal and growth. As the company continues to heal and rebuild, I remain hopeful and committed to fostering a workplace where respect is the foundation and every voice matters. The journey wasn't easy, and the scars will always remain, but the lessons learned are invaluable. It's a reminder to all of us that our worth isn't defined by titles or years served, but by our courage to stand up for what is right, and the strength to move forward with dignity. This story is far from over, but the chapter of pain has closed. What lies ahead is a future built on trust, respect, and the unwavering belief that true leadership serves the people first.